So the second part of this assignment will be located here where it says Lab 2. So I'm going to move there. And as you can see here, we're going to have all the files. And the name of my file will be crazyprofessor.c or prof.c. So I'm going to open that and I'm going to explain what I did here first. So obviously I had to include a pthread and semaphore. I had to include them. I'm going to go straight to the main method, which is all the way on the bottom, and I'm going to explain what I did here. First, this part is only taking the arguments and validating it. As you can see, that's getOpt. So that's pretty self-explanable. This is going to be the error message if obviously there is an error from here, or if the amount of arguments are not the right one. So if you put less parameters or more than 5. Then I'm going to call the professor method, and then immediately after that I'm going to call each student based on the total amount of students that I have. Now I'm going to go up and I'm going to go to the professor method. But before I dig into it, I just want to clarify, I have a student structure here which specifies the ID of each student, number of questions that the student has, and the number of questions answered that the student has. These are your variables that I'm going to be using, holding these values. And these are the semaphores and threads and functions that I created based on what the professor specified on the instructions. So back to the main method, the first thing I did was call the professor method. So what I did basically here is first I tested if I was able to initialize the mutex or the semaphores, as you can see. That's all this part over here. Then I created my first thread, which is called the professor thread, and I pass no arguments at all. So that will be this method over here. And as you can see, well, the first thing that will get printed will be that the crazy professor has walked into the office is empty, and the professor is going to take a nap. So inside of this while loop, which is going to loop indefinitely, I unlock this semaphore, which is ready for a question, since the professor is ready for a question, and then I log the one that says that it's waiting for a question. Now this part over here is only gonna you're only gonna go inside of this little part over here, this if statement, whenever the office is empty basically, and it's gonna exit the thread. As you can see, all students have left. That's when you have no more students. Meanwhile, this is gonna keep looping over and over and over again. See, so while the professor is ready to answer a question, he's gonna start answering it. He's gonna finish answering it, and then he's gonna allow for the following question to come. Now let's remember down on the main method, I created a professor method which called that thread, and then I'm gonna start creating students. So that would be over here, and it's gonna take certain amount of students, and that student obviously is gonna be identified by its ID. So it can be student 0, student 1, student 2, etc. So I'm creating a pointer to the structure that I created, and I'm allocating memory to it. So based on this ID, I'm going to create obviously the ID, the amount of question that a student has, and I'm going to initialize the number of questions answered as 0, since I'm just initializing it. And over here again, I'm calling the student thread, and I'm sending the new student pointer, which is basically this one, with all the information. This thread will be over here, and there will be the argument. This will be the student basically. I'm going to select the student, and over here, okay, we have an if and else statement. It's going to tell us if the student is able to walk in or not. So If the number of students in the office is less than the student size, then obviously the student ID is going to get the student ID of the student that I sent as the argument. That student is going to enter the office, and I'm going to increment the number of students in the office. Now, if the office is full, then I'm gonna lock it, um, and I'm gonna have the student waiting until the office opens, which we're gonna see later on. It's gonna open, and then it's gonna proceed with the same procedure. Student ID, it's gonna enter the office, and it's gonna increment the number. So now, while the number of questions that each student has is greater than 0, meaning that while each student still has questions to ask, I'm gonna lock this part specifically just for the student. So the student's gonna start asking the question. I'm gonna unlock the semaphore waiting that waits for a question, and I'm gonna lock waiting for the answer since the student is waiting for an answer. So the question has been asked, the question has been answered, and I'm gonna decrement the number of questions that the student has, and I'm gonna increment the number of answers that from the questions that the student had. Now, this is when the student is going to leave. This student specifically, this student is going to leave the office. So that's when he has or she has no more questions. That's when she's going to leave. And obviously the number of students is going to decrease. And now I'm going to unlock the office open, which was, remember, it was locked over here. So once some student leaves, the next one can come in if the office is full. Pretty much. Oh, over here, the pthread exit null is basically when, since this student has no more questions, that thread or that student is finally going to leave. These following methods are the ones that the professor specified in the instruction. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, towards the end, I'm destroying every single semaphore that I created. I think I covered the entire program, which I did. All right, so I'm gonna test it. I'm gonna exit it out, and then, well, I already have the make file. It's up to date, and I'm gonna run it. The way I run it is gonna be with crazy, and then the number of students, let's say 3 students, and the office size, which could be 2. So as you can see, professor walks into the office, it's napping. Student 2 shows up in the office just like student 1. Student 2 asks a question, and the professor is going to only focus on that student until his question has been answered. Same thing is going to happen for student 1. Then student 2 still has a question, student 1 still has a question, and then that student is going to leave the office. Once the student 1 leaves, the student 0 is going to show up. Student 2 still has a question, student 2 leaves. Student 0 now has a question, and the professor is going to answer his question, and then the student is going to leave again. All students are going to leave, so now the office hours are finished. I only tested 3 and 2, but this number can go up to, I don't know, like 30, 20, still works the same way. Now, if I only call /crazy, it's just gonna prompt me the usage for error. Then if I do, let's say I don't put arguments for the office side, still it's not gonna take. So that would be it for part 2, Crazy Professor.